Okay, I wanted to talk about these three unmet needs, but I wanted to explain how they are actually biblical. And I'm not saying this because I want people to think I'm some kind of holy person. Authenticity, attunement, and Arcadia is basically the three fundamental primary human needs that I wanted to explain creates addictions, creates bad habits, creates neurosis when we don't have these met. I'm going to explain how this actually happens to be biblical in a second. And it happens to be so in line with what Christ said is the law above all laws. But first, let me explain authenticity. So authenticity is the ability to truly be ourselves, to be honest with ourselves, to honor what is good for us, to be true to ourselves, to not lie to ourselves. That's authenticity, right? To not suppress our emotions, to not suppress the soul gifts that we have, to not suppress the design that God created us to be. Attunement is building off of Gabor Mate's primary need of attachment. But I wanted to say, like I said before, attunement is truly the healthy way to attach in relationship to a human being. It's the ability to be heard, seen, and valued while also hearing, seeing, and valuing the other person in the relationship. Attunement is what we truly need, and when we don't get these in our environment that is nurturing us growing up, that's what creates all these distortions, stunting development. It stunts our development in our nervous system, from brain function, our ability to think clearly. It stunts certain parts of the brain from actually working and activating. It stunts our mental, emotional development. It stunts our perception, our ability to be humble, our ability to see other sides of the story. So that's trauma right there. Having these needs unmet is already traumatic. It's a version of trauma, and that's what happens within us. Arcadia, the third need that I wanted to say, is our connection to nature, our connection to the divine, our connection to the way God created the world, the way God created and designed nature to function, how God designed the trees and all the plants to function and give us oxygen as we exchange this super intimate relationship in order for us to breathe. Like, we can't even breathe. Like, to have that understanding, to understand that God has this design for our microbiome, the microbes in our body, to design and function a certain way where it functions optimally. There's an actual way for it to become dysfunctional and pathogenic. Arcadia is having this deep sense of understanding how even the microbes in the environment, in the soil, impact our health, impact our connection to nature, impact our perception, impact our ability to think clearly, impact our hormonal stability, our hormonal balance. It impacts everything. So Arcadia is this deep sense of nature and God's laws and how God creates certain things to work in harmony or not if we choose not to align with it. So these three needs are fundamental for our development, for our mental, emotional development, for our nervous system development, for our neurological development. All of these are essential for our development. To be critical thinkers, to be able to see other people's sides of the story, to be able to empathize with other people, to have compassion for other people, to be humble and to not cross your arms and look at everyone's teaching and be like, this is not biblical. If you knew what was biblical or not, you'd be able to make those connections yourself without having someone to hold your hand. But because so much of us are stunted mentally, emotionally, neurologically, I'm going to explain how this is actually really biblical. So these three fundamental primary needs, which I say is critical for our evolution, for us to actualize our potential, to be the best version of ourselves. These are fundamental, and not getting these needs when we were growing up in the environment that nurtured us will create all kinds of dysfunctions. It creates neurosis. And the neurosis is a suppression of that pain. It's a suppression of our authenticity. It's suppressing those emotions and the honesty of saying the things we really wanted to say, being who our soul truly wants to be in this world. So neurosis is this suppressing of it. And because this energy is not supposed to be suppressed, this is supposed to be expressed in the world, it creates these dysfunctional ways of letting out the energy, this trapped psychic energy, this trapped truth within us, really, that is trying to find a way to escape, but it escapes through a way that creates entropy, where it's an actual dissipation of energy. And it's not being expressed in a world in a healthy way, in a healthy environment with attunement, with the ability to be authentic and to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, where it's expressed and the energy is in a closed loop where we get feedback and we become more and more connected to each other. We become more and more purpose-driven. We become more and more developed. We become deeper in love. Neurosis is beneath the addiction, beneath the bad habit, beneath the distractive behavior. The distractive behavior, addictive behavior, that's all symptoms of neurosis because we are suppressing this truth of needs that we actually need to develop and be who we're supposed to be in this world. So I'm going to get into how this actually is biblical. And it goes to the book of Matthew, where Christ says to love the Lord your God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and all thy mind. This is the first of all commandments. And to love your neighbor as yourself. This is the law that all the other laws and prophets hang on. Christ says this in the book of Matthew. And I want to explain this. So first, love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and all thy mind is Arcadia. How do you love the Lord thy God with all thy soul, all thy heart, and all thy mind? If God designed our microbiome to function in an optimal way, if God designed our bodies to thrive and function in an optimal way, to understand how our liver, how our organs all work together in an optimal way, if God designed our nervous system to develop and function in an optimal way, or for us to even be in harmony with nature, with the environment that creates our body, that gives us fuel daily, that gives us the ability to heal, the ability to thrive. If God designed it a certain way, the microbes in the soil, which allows the plants and the nutrients to become nutrient dense, if God designed it in a certain way, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and all thy mind, wouldn't it make sense that we are trying to align ourselves with the way God designed things to be? That's Arcadia. That's Arcadia. So loving the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, all thy mind, all thy guts, all thy nerves, all thy organs, all thy thoughts, it's Arcadia, aligning with the way God designed nature to function in harmony. And to the degree we don't align with that is the degree we actually see ourselves separate. It's the degree where we are always in this never-ending loop of entropy, where we're just always suffering because we don't understand Arcadia. Okay, now to love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, well, let's first put this out here, that most people don't love their neighbor as themselves. And not because a lot of these people don't care about their neighbor, but for one, people don't even know how to love themselves. They don't know how to honor and respect themselves. People are poisoning themselves. Again, and I'm not shaming anyone, but it goes back to these unmet needs and people are not aware of it. But poisoning themselves, have this negative self-talk because of the trauma, because of the suppressed unmet needs, all of this stuff. We're suppressing ourselves. So authenticity is how you love yourself. Like, it blows my mind how much this aligns with it, and how many people are just like crossing their arms and like, this is not biblical. But if people weren't so traumatized, they would be able to think clearly. Authenticity is how we love ourselves. So how do we love our neighbor as ourselves? Well, lo and behold, it's attunement. So loving God, loving thy neighbor as thyself is the law of all laws. It's the law of love. It's the law of love. These three needs, meeting these three needs. And I want to explain that to meet our deep needs of authenticity, attunement, and Arcadia, it's not as easy as people think. And here I'm about to get even more biblical, not because I want to look like a holy person. I'm an anthroposophist, for those of you who are always wondering. And if any of you guys know what that is, then you know. As I had the revelations of this came later. In fact, this came in my sleep. I woke up and I was like, holy shit, you just showed me the most practical way to understand the law of love. And it is completely biblical. So authenticity, attunement, and Arcadia is not so easily attainable if we've been through all this trauma and we've developed years and years and years of, let's say, habits and addictive behavior and destructive behavior because of neurosis. It's not so easy. In order to be authentic, if you've been, what I would say, inconsistent for so long, if you've developed the habit and the personality and the identity associated with being inconsistent, which is not authentic, for so long, you're going to have to let go of all of these secret stories and narratives of not being safe, of being seen. You're going to have to let go of all of these fears that you've developed, that it's not safe to be honest, that it's not safe to express your needs. This is deep, deep spiritual work. This is deep, deep work. You're going to have to face fear. You're going to have to walk through the valley of the shadow of death. You're going to have to exercise faith to dip your toe into authenticity. To dip your toe in attunement, if you've been so accustomed to years and years and years of dysfunctional relationship where you're not seen, you're not heard, and you're not valued, and you're shamed, and there's contempt, and there's criticism, and there's defensiveness, and there's all 4 horsemen of the relationship at play, to just jump into attunement. Dude, when you come into a healthy relationship, it's going to challenge your programs of codependency. It's going to challenge your programs of respecting yourself, of being able to hear other people. It's going to challenge all these secret stories of fear, of truly connecting deeply with people. It's going to challenge your ability to let go of the toxic relationships, the dysfunctional relationships, the abusive relationships. It's going to challenge your ability to say no and set boundaries with yourself in relationship. You don't just jump into that. That need, you have to dip your toes into attunement, and you're going to have to go through these layers and layers of ego deaths. You're going to have to go through layers and layers of walking through the valley of the shadow of death. It's going to require you to exercise faith, trust in yourself, trust in the higher design of the way God designed our needs to meet and to develop us in mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual ways. And to just meet our needs of Arcadia, if you've found comfort for so long in an artificial environment, in numbing yourself, in doing so many things that are not natural, that are not in alignment with God's design, if you're so accustomed to eating processed junk food, poisoning your body, poisoning your liver, destroying your gut microbiome, drinking alcohol, binging on alcohol, all the poisons, to meet our needs is a true journey of love. It's a true journey of rising in the frequency of love. It's a true journey of practicing the law of love. It's a true journey, and it's going to test all of your old ways that are out of balance. So if you're not authentic, basically it's going to test your inconsistency. If you're not attuned, it's going to test your insecurity in relationship. If you're not Arcadian, it's going to test your incoherence in relationship to God, the world, nature, and the way God designed things to function and work in harmony. So the law of love and meeting our unmet needs is truly a very, very deep, courageous process. I'm telling you, you don't just meet our needs. I know there's a lot of people who just kind of like brush me off when I actually spoke about these three needs. For one, practicing authenticity, this is me doing it right here. I'm practicing this. Trust me, it's been a long journey. This is a very practical way to journey into the law of love. And practicing the law of love, authenticity, attunement, Arcadia, is truly the journey of self-love.